You wouldn't think that a AAA adaptation of the Avengers property would be vying to be one of the most controversial games of the year, but throughout the production of Marvel's Avengers, developer Crystal Dynamics have seemed pretty keen to prove that it could be. Since its announcement in 2017, insults have been flung at the game over its character designs looking like cheap MCU knockoffs, or the much more egregious choice by Square Enix to capitalise on the games as a service trend. Like many gamers viewing the situation from the outside, I must admit, I didn't exactly have high hopes for Marvel's Avengers. Though after donning the capes of its multiple heroes myself, I was pleasantly surprised with the final release, even if there are multiple issues that need rectifying if it's going to survive.
Okay. Well, if we're going into battle with our big-headed friends Death Fortress, Robot Army, and the flotilla of warships, we might as well look good doing it, right? Right.
Wait, aren't you gonna say the thing?
What?
You know, Avengers Assemble.
Yeah, we don't really say that.
Just be cool, okay? Got it.
Marvel's Avengers feels like two different games in one package that share the same mechanics. Its single-player campaign takes the much more traditional and frankly requested approach, following the young Miss Marvel hot off the heels of discovering her powers as she attempts to reunite the Avengers. Its multiplayer component, on the other hand, works much in the same way as other live service games like Destiny. Players can drop into a series of different missions as their favourite Avenger, alongside friends as they rack up loot and skill points. The best thing for players to do is to hop right into the single player missions as quickly as possible, as thankfully its narrative alone is more than worth the price of admission. It tells the story of Kamala Khan, a young Muslim girl who fights against injustices of both the criminal and social kind. This leads her to track down the long disbanded Avengers and try to rally them back together to save the Inhumans from the evil corporation AIM. This storyline itself is pretty simple, but it wouldn't be out of place alongside the canon of the comics or even the MCU, while still retaining a lot of surprises. Kamala Khan as the show-stealing protagonist is easily the most compelling part of this narrative, and I personally find her to be one of the most wonderful superheroes featured in any piece of media. I was instantly charmed by how she was constantly excited and curious about the world around her. Kamala operates as something of a stand-in for the audience, channeling the excitement of gaining superpowers and becoming an Avenger that every Marvel fan has dreamt of. Her diverse background is treated respectfully and portrayed as a very normal aspect of the world. It is a breath of fresh air to see such a character be the main focus of a AAA title. This also leaves room for a lot of surprises for characters that fans are already familiar with. Characters like Tony Stark and Bruce Banner are very similar in nature to their MCU counterparts, but find themselves radically changed by the events of the game. Troy Baker's Bruce is a lot more somber and a little scatterbrained due to being stuck as the Hulk for a long time, while Nolan North Stark is a much angrier version of the character than we've seen before, and his sarcastic remarks seem to hold a little bit more bite than usual. We also get to see the antagonism that has brewed and festered between the pair over the last 5 years, which adds a captivating layer of conflict.
I am warning you. What's the matter, Bruce? Make you angry? See, it's always been your problem. Running from who you are, what you are. Maybe that's why Monica got the better of you.
The single player story only took me about 12 hours to complete, and I was engrossed for its entire runtime. The story may not be as dark as the ones explored in the Arkham series, but it is still a very enthralling take on the most famous superheroes in the world. Its winding narrative also gave me the chance to play as each of the 6 base game characters and get a feel for them before taking them over to the multiplayer. Unfortunately, it's this component that lets the title down. The multiplayer portion has the potential to be a lot of fun, but at the moment it is fairly repetitive. Most of the missions are pretty much the same, and you don't get the chance to face off against enemies that are any different from the ones faced in the campaign. Even when a mission seems different at first, most of the time players will wind up doing the same actions, like killing wave after wave of enemies or securing a location. This repetitive nature is nothing new for a live service game, but it is made all the worse by a lack of interesting gear and no new locations to explore. Thankfully, in both modes of gameplay, the combat is incredibly tight, and players will be able to mix things up depending on which character they're playing as and which skills they've unlocked. Hulk can deal huge amounts of damage and clear out large groups of enemies, whereas Iron Man is great for moving quickly around the map and picking off enemies from afar as a support character. These aren't hard and fast rules though, because players can unlock specific skills to make each character better at a chosen combat style. You have the choice to specialise Cap as an up-close brawler or focus on his shield skills, making him a very effective ranged combatant. Though players can pretty much ignore the games as a service mechanics in the story mode, as soon as they dive into multiplayer there is a much bigger emphasis on collecting loot and boosting each character's power level. Though I was skeptical of this approach in a game that seemingly didn't suit it, it actually proves to be a great way to extend the gameplay further because thankfully collecting loot is a lot of fun.
Right. That is more like it. Don't it look amazing, Jarvis? Take my picture.
Well done, sir.
The larger issue though is that there isn't currently much strategy to assigning loot to a character, despite the gear having special stats. I wound up just collecting whatever had the highest level and then scrapping the rest. This may change as multiplayer evolves in the coming months, but as of now, most gear is useless. There were also several bugs and performance issues that I encountered during my time with Avengers. The frame rate on my PlayStation 4 bounced all over the place. During several cutscenes I could barely see what was happening due to the low frame rate. There were also many times that enemies would disappear or refuse to spawn, which made completing missions fairly difficult, if not impossible. The largest issue I encountered while playing though was the very spotty matchmaking system. Whenever I attempted to play multiplayer sessions, I was only able to join up with another player once or twice. I never managed to build a full team of Avengers, even when I used the quick play option. This meant that majority of my online play was spent with AI companions, which is obviously not the way this game was meant to be played. Those who have friends to play with will have a blast, but matchmaking with strangers is a pretty serious issue so far.
You're welcome.
Though Marvel's Avengers mostly navigates the issues that it drew controversy for, it definitely has its prominent issues that hold it back from being as great as it could be. A heartwarming storyline and satisfying combat are definitely its core strengths, though it's let down by its shallow live game mechanics, glitches, frame rate issues and matchmaking. Though I have no doubt that it could rise above these issues as the title evolves. I've been George from TechRaptor. Make sure you subscribe to the TechRaptor YouTube channel for more reviews, features, guides and previews, and I'll see you next time.